Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Pam Ettinger. This is the Boston Public Schools Superintendent Search Committee remote meeting for March 29, 2022. The meeting shall be conducted between the hour of 5 and 6, and we are getting started. Just a brief review of the agenda for tonight. We will begin with an opening roll call and the setting up of our interpreters. We will do the approval of minutes from our March 22nd meeting, and then we'll have about 15 minutes for public comments. And then we will do a little processing on what we've heard in the community listening sessions. The bulk of our time tonight will be on the update of the superintendent's job description. And then we will hopefully 5 minutes to 6. We'll have a motion to conclude, and that would be the process of our meeting tonight. Okay, so let's begin. So good evening to everyone and welcome to this meeting. Because this is a remote session, I'm going to ask Ms. Parvex to please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Harvey, Mr. O'Neill, Dr. Pignato.
I just lost you.
Present.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Pignato was here?
Yes. I just saw her. She's here. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Roundtree? Ms. Tang? Mr. Valenzuela?
Present.
Dr. Edinger?
Yes.
Ms. Lopera?
Present.
And Mr. McNeil?
Present.
Thank you, Lena. So tonight's session is being shared live on Zoom. It will be rebroadcast on Boston City TV and posted on the search committee's webpage, bostonpublicschools.org/SUPT-search. The committee is pleased to be offering live simultaneous interpretation in Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Cabo Verdeano, Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Somali, French, and American Sign Language. And after our interpreters are done introducing themselves and providing Zoom instructions, we will activate the interpretation icon or the globe at the bottom of your screen. Please click the icon to select your language preference. We shall begin with our Cantonese interpreter. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Pam. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna. I'll be a Cantonese interpreter for the meeting tonight. 大家好，下午好。我係 Anna， 我係你今日嘅廣東話同步翻譯。一陣間你見到個地球儀嘅時候，請你撳落去揀 Chinese 呢個圖標，咁就會去到廣東話嘅同步翻譯㗎啦。用手機嘅話咧，撳嗰3個點，再揀更多，再揀 Chinese， 咁亦都會去到同步翻譯嘅廣東話㗎咯。唔該晒，一陣間見。Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And would our Mandarin interpreter please introduce yourselves?
Thank you. 大家好，我是您今天的普通话的翻译。那么一会儿他们打开翻译功能之后，请你呢点击这个地球仪的标识，然后选择我的普通话的翻译频道。如果您是用平板儿、iPad 或者是用手机上线的，在右下方有3个点，请你点击3个点，然后选择我们的语言频道。好，祝您今天晚上过得愉快。Thank you.
Thank you. And our Vietnamese interpreter, please.
Good evening, my name is Duyên, Vietnamese interpreter. Xin chào quý vị. Hôm nay Duyên sẽ là thông dịch liên tục cho các anh chị. Xin bấm vào quả cầu và chọn ngôn ngữ tiếng Việt thì Duyên sẽ là thông dịch cho các anh chị nhé. Thank you.
Thank you. And our Spanish interpreter, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Muy buenas noches, damas y caballeros. Mi nombre es Randolph Domínguez. Voy a ser su intérprete del idioma español el día de hoy. Para accesar el canal de idioma español, buscar en la parte inferior de su pantalla un globo terráqueo, van a pulsar allí y van a buscar el idioma español y seleccionen el español como su idioma de preferencia. Si están utilizando un iPad o un celular, por favor buscar los 3 puntos que aparecen en su pantalla, pulsar allí y seleccionar español para poder escuchar esta reunión en español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. And our Portuguese interpreter, please.
Boa tarde, meu nome é Fátima. Eu vou estar aqui traduzindo para você em português. Se você estiver no computador, você pode procurar a sua língua no globo, ou se você estiver num telefone ou num iPad, você pode encontrar 3 pontos abaixo do seu telefone indicar a língua preferida, tá bem? Hi, my name is Fatima. I'll be interpreting tonight, Portuguese to English and vice versa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if we may have our Haitian Creole interpreter, please.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Joe Saint-Hilaire, Haitian Creole interpreter. C'est un plaisir nous gain pour nous avoir après-midi pour nous présenter le programme ça et nous dire que si vous besoin entrer dans la conversation, ou cap clic au bas écran là, ou joindre un globe, ou cliquer, ou choisir langue créole là et puis ou cap participer. Pas hésiter à poser toutes questions gain et nous là n'a traduit pour nous souhaiter d'ores et déjà bonne chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a Somali interpreter, please.
Good evening. My name is Camila. I'm going to be your Somali interpreter. Magacayga waa Camila. Kusoo dhawaad caawa shirkeen oo lagu dooranayay maamulaha cusub ee iskuulka oo noo socotay ilawgii 22 had jirtaan soo dhaafanay ee bishaan March. Igala socda janaalka Soomaaliga halkaasaan iska dhageysano. Thank you.
Thank you. And our French interpreter, please.
Good evening. My name is Angel. I'll be your French interpreter tonight. Bonsoir, je m'appelle Angèle. Je serai votre interprète français ce soir. S'il vous plaît, pour accéder à la langue française au cours de cette réunion, regardez juste en bas de votre écran. Il y a l'écran, l'icône du monde. Vous cliquez sur l'icône, vous choisissez la langue française et vous serez en mesure de nous écouter directement en français. Merci et on se retrouve dans la classe.
Thank you very much. If we may have our Arabic interpreter, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed Al-Rubai. I will be your Arabic interpreter today. مرحبا، أنا اسمي أحمد الربيعي، أنا مترجم اللغة العربية لهذا اليوم. بإمكانكم الاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية من خلال الذهاب إلى أسفل الشاشة. ستشاهدون علامة الكرة الأرضية. اضغط على هذه العلامة وستظهر لك اختيارات اللغات. قم باختيار اللغة العربية وعندها ستتمكن من الاستماع إلى الترجمة كاملة. شكرا جزيلا. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And our American Sign Language interpreters tonight are Michelle Martinez and Kylie Kirkpatrick. So please introduce yourself. And I would like to thank all of you for assisting us this evening. And we will now activate the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. I would like to remind everyone, myself included, to please speak at a slower pace to assist our interpreters. Thank you. Now we will now move on to the approval of minutes. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 22nd, 2022 meeting as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second, please? Okay. Did I have a second? I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you. And any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Parvex, will you please call the roll?
Thank you. Ms. Harvey? Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Dr. Pignato?
Yes.
Mr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Tang, well, Ms. Tang is not coming, right? Mr. Valenzuela?
Yes.
Dr. Edinger?
Yes, please.
Ms. Lopera?
Yes.
And Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Ms. Parvex. And thank you to those of you who spoke this evening. Oh, wait a minute. I skipped the paragraph there. We have minutes. Thank you. They are approved. And we will move on now to public comments. The committee has set aside up to 15 minutes of tonight's agenda when we welcome the public's comments. And now I will turn it over to Ms. Parvex to carry out this portion of our agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Edinger. The public comment period for today's meeting will be 15 minutes in total. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak, and I will remind you when you have 30 seconds remaining. Those who require interpretation services will receive an additional 2 minutes. Please click the virtual hand if you wish to speak. I will call on speakers in the order in which hands are raised. When I call your name, please state your name, affiliation, and what neighborhood you are from before you begin. Our first speaker for tonight is John Mudd, followed by Courtney Feely-Karp. Mr. Mad, can you unmute yourself?
Mr. Mudd, you're still muted.
Yeah, did I make it now? And
Yes,
do I need
thank
to
you.
start the video? I apologize. I'm technologically challenged, as people know. I would thank you for allowing me to talk. I would urge the search committee to continue to rank elimination of opportunity and achievement gaps as the #1 priority for the district and the #1 priority in your job description and the #1 priority that you communicate to candidates for superintendent, showing the commitment of the district to this crucial goal. We don't want, it's been the priority, top priority for the strategic vision of 2020 to 2025. It was the top priority in the last job description. And as I said, I don't think there should be any retreat. If you are using the last job description, as some people have said, as the basis for your definition of what we want in the future, I would just consider strengthening a couple of things. When we talk about the diversity of teachers, I would emphasize that we want language diversity as well as ethnic and racial diversity. Secondly, as a member of the ELL task force, I know you've received our recommendation, but I think it's crucial that access to native language and the shift from English immersion to access to native language and native language literacy is a crucial new goal that the school committee has set and should be included in the objectives for any candidate that you talk to. And finally, I would just emphasize implementation. We've seen so many plans in Boston that have not been implemented. We want to be sure that we have a visionary, but also someone who has the managerial skills to see through the systems changes that are necessary to implement our policies. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Courtney Philly Karp.
Hi, thank you again for the opportunity for public comment tonight. My name is Courtney Philly Karp. I am a parent of a child at the Henderson Inclusion School. And I'm here tonight just kind of picking up on the previous commenters' last point. I appear before this body to make comment at one of the first meetings to echo exactly that point about the need not just for implementation of ideas. I do agree with the assessment that one thing we are never short of here in Boston is people with many degrees and ideas, and that to have someone with a proven, not just a managerial track record, but an implementation track record. And I really want to stress the need for someone who has a proven record with infrastructure. That is something we have not been this successful with in Boston, despite the launch of the Green Line extension this week. Infrastructure has never really been our strong suit, and particularly within the public school system here in the city. And someone who can show an ability to provide the basic foundations, figuratively and literally, for our children to learn in an equitable fashion is something that truly needs to be considered, as unsexy as that might be in a job description. And finally, one of the things I wanted to raise that arose after I had made my prior public comments was when the survey was issued regarding the potential aspects of the job description for the superintendent. I was extremely dismayed, disappointed, and frankly somewhat surprised to see not a single question relevant to the experience of special education. As you're aware, in the most recent data, which I believe is school year 2020, over 20% of the student body is considered to receive special ed services, i.e. has an IEP. Sorry, I know I speak really quick and the whole time limit thing makes it so hard. I apologize in advance and I should know better. I do think it's important for there to be specific questions and an understanding of what any candidate's experience with special education is. And I fully bring my Henderson lens to this, but I firmly believe that inclusion is by far the best approach for all students. And particularly since there has been many conversations and many around the dismantling of our sort of institutional structures around racism. If you're doing diversity without disability, you're doing it wrong. And I would really love to see some very specific targeted questions about any candidates' views on inclusion, their experience with it, and how they would bring that to bear in Boston Public Schools to not just serve our special education students, but to serve all our students. You only have to come to the Henderson to see how well it works. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. We don't have anyone else raising their hand. I don't know if, oh,
That's
yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Now we do.
Oh, you do, okay.
Yes, next speaker is Ruby Reyes.
Hi, my name is Ruby Reyes, and I'm the Executive Director of the Boston Education Justice Alliance. And I just wanted to share some comments. Mr. O'Neill has shared some comments at several different school committees about 5 years of superintendency experience. This was in the job description at the last round where we hired Dr. Caselius. It was included and incorporated by the search committee. And then the candidates that were selected for finalists, none of them had 5 years of superintendency experience. So I wanted to bring this up because as you all are working on the job description, I hope that you are writing a thoughtful job description in which you will find finalists who meet your own job description and are able to meet that track record so that Boston doesn't have to settle. Boston has a complex system of schools and communities. We're in a city of deep history of racism as well as intense segregations. Our schools are losing students to gentrification. So there's so many factors. And it's not a city where someone can come in and learn, but more we need someone with a proven track record of effectiveness. So I would hope that you're really thinking about that as you're reviewing resumes and picking out finalists, someone who's able to carry out a vision and be able to look at the district from a bird's eye view at all the many different complex intricacies of how things work. And then also someone who's able to create a healthy culture for central office. We've often heard Dr. Caselius talking about holding herself accountable and folks in central office holding themselves accountable. I would hope that you would be looking for a systems thinker who's shown that they can be effective in creating systems so that people are not having to hold themselves accountable, but they're in a system where these mechanisms are in place and working efficiently. And so that's what I wanted to share. I do hope that this committee will consider that if, because of the short timeline, that if you don't find candidates who meet your own job description, that you think about not settling for our students and considering opening up the search until we find a good candidate with a proven track record of effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any other speakers. Is there anyone who wants to speak? Please raise your hand virtually and I will move you in as a panelist.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see anyone.
Thank you.
Do you want to continue then?
No, thank you, Lena. I think we can proceed to the next part of our agenda.
Okay, so just let me remind everyone that if they want to email their written testimony, they can do so to the superintendent search at bostonpublicschools.org. So
Okay.
back to the chair. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for your help. And thank you to folks who've offered comments. In the next portion, I would like to give folks a brief update on progress in terms of our process. And then in the context of that, maybe discuss one item that had come up during our last discussion as a search committee, and offer some progress in that area. In terms of the RFP for superintendent search firm, they were due, as you remember, on March 22nd, and we had gotten 7 RFP submissions. The RFP review team is conducting interviews this week with firms that have submitted the most advantageous proposals. They will make a recommendation to the school committee on April 6th. And the RFP review team members are Chief Human Capital Officer Al Taylor, Mr. Michael O'Neill, and Jose Valenzuela. So we will look forward to their determination. I want to give you a recap of where we are in terms of our listening sessions. As you remember, we had originally planned 4. We held one at the very beginning, and then we held one that was in the Spanish language. We very recently held a student focus session last Thursday, March 24th. It was co-hosted by Marcus McNeil and Jessica Tang. It was a wonderful session. The students shared their hopes and dreams for BPS and chocolate milk. They really wanted chocolate milk. And we were so incredibly, they were very supportive of one another. It was amazing. It was heartwarming and it was hopeful. It was a great session. We also held remote community listening sessions on March 9th and the 15th. That was the first 2. We had more than 960 registrants and more than 600 attendees across these 3 sessions. Remember that we have one more general listening sessions coming up this Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. And that is co-hosted by our Boston City Councilor, Julia Mejia and Dr. Pignato. So we're looking forward to attending that. And this is also a good time. This is a good framework to update you on a suggestion that came up during the last time we met. Folks around this room felt that it was important that in addition to the Spanish home language listening session that we had, that we have opportunities for other languages to be, the folks who spoke other languages on our list to have an opportunity to feel at home and offer their comments. In addition, there are a number of organizations around Boston who are interested in hosting listening sessions of their own. So our staff is working on making those connections. Now, the home language sessions will likely be smaller in scale because of the number of students with home languages really dropped from somewhere around 13,000 to less than 2,000 in each one of the subsequent categories. So I was going to ask our staff members who is here with us tonight to offer a look at those numbers. Do we have those, Mary? Oh, I think we lost Mary.
And let me pull that up. Give me one moment. Apologies.
Yeah, that would be terrific. So while Mary pulls that up, I wanted to offer folks a framework on where these additional discussions are going to make an impact. As you know, when we talked about the first 4 listening sessions, the last one being this coming Saturday morning, we thought that those would be large scale ones, and they have been, right, with a large number of folks attending. And that whatever information that we collect from those sessions would inform the writing of our job descriptions. And by and large, they have. And also the major themes that have emerged from those the first 3, and we're hoping the 4th listening session, that those major themes are aligning with what we're hearing from our surveys in terms of what's really important to folks and what's top of mind for them. But as we go through the rest of our search process, it is important that we don't stop listening, because all of the material and all of the information and all of the observations that we gather from our public will also be materials to inform the work of our next superintendent. And we also have at least 2 levels of interview at this committee and 1 level of public interview at the school committee. So these will be continuous streams of information, either new information or information that will add to the strength of what we've collected. So in the interest of a continuing dialogue, I think, so these additional sessions, even though they may be smaller, we're hoping that we would have representatives of this committee to be attending some of those to allow folks to understand that we're listening deeply. And that even if some of the information that's collected post job description formation, it will continue to inform the work of the district, the superintendent, and the team. So it is in that spirit that we are welcoming additional smaller sessions. Questions on that before Mary pulls up the numbers that shows us the different languages that we're considering. Okay, so not hearing any at the moment, and please, pipe up as we go. Mary, would you show us what the breakdown is?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
One moment. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, here we go. Yes.
Great. So the column on the left shows the preferred language spoken by our students. The middle column shows the number of students for whom we have that recorded as their preferred language. And then the column to the right has the percentage. So as Pam mentioned, you can see about 28,000 students. So 55% of our students are preferred languages English, 28% Spanish, 3% Chinese, 2.9% Vietnamese, etc. So you can see they're listed here in descending order.
Right. So the initial recommendation here is that there seems to be a natural break after our Haitian Creole families. So we would then entertain Chinese, Vietnamese, Cape Verdean, and Haitian Creole. Now, this does not mean that folks can't come to a regular meeting and speak in their home language, and then it would be translated because we have a full range of translators. But some of the home language session then will be conducted and facilitated in the language that is listed here, and we would do 4. Comments from my colleagues around the table. Does that seem to make sense to you? Okay. Not hearing any immediate comments. Let us go and do some more research on how this is going to firm up, and we will report back. But we are, yes, go ahead.
Sorry
Michael,
about that.
Michael, and then Marcus. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it Lorena, Michael, and Marcus?
No, it's
Roxy had her hand up first.
Yes, it's
Roxy had her hand up first.
Roxy, Michael, Marcus. There we go.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was trying to get your attention, but maybe my hand was blending. I don't know what's going on.
Go ahead. Just holler at me.
Thank you. A couple of things regarding questions. One, the slide was very helpful to see the languages and the numbers, because if not that we're basing everything on your numbers are too low to be able to hear your native language, and we're only considering one, but it's just helpful to see the size and be able to assess that too. And I think it's really important to give those opportunities. So even if it's 2 or 3 more, I think that's a great thing. I also did want to go back around to what I brought up at the last meeting. So not just the additional languages, but also even as a parent to allow me to fully participate. So I can get on some elevators out of the building I work in. If we could even move this meeting to 5:15 to 6:15, so I can at least be off elevators, because I don't want to miss these important comments from the public or anything like that. So I once again bring that to the table, that if everyone can make it that small adjustment to allow me to fully participate.
Roxy, I think staff is working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we did acknowledge that, we might need to make adjustments.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. Michael?
Thank you. I echo what Ms. Harvey just said, both about it was interesting to see the list, but also not to to make sure we send a message of we want all of our parents and communities to speak with us and make sure they feel heard, even in their native language. I'm just mildly curious if, Ms. Dillman, if we have the preference, because you just listed Chinese, and as you know today in our interpretive services, we have both Mandarin and Cantonese that we always offer. And I was wondering if we would try to do sessions in both of those native languages.
You know, I don't, you know, Married, I don't mean to speak for you, but I think we, I think we're still struggling with that piece, that we might be able to manage both in one session if we can get the translation right, but there may be a preference amongst the community. I think we probably want to go out and ask. I'm a Cantonese speaker, and I have a reasonable facility to understand Mandarin. I don't know if it always works the other way around for all of our Asian American communities or Chinese communities. So it's something that we probably need to look into, and what groups in our community would care to facilitate and how they want to facilitate. So if that, I'm not giving you an answer. That's my problem.
No, that was
helpful to
know. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we were thinking that way.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing it up, Michael.
Thank you.
And Marcus.
Yeah, I think just a quick comment on this. I think it's good that we are, floating this idea around, because I think it'll definitely open up another avenue for accessibility, definitely for more parents, community members, and of course, more students as well. And just people feeling comfortable to come to our meetings, especially if it's in their home language. So yeah, definitely a good avenue for more accessibility.
Terrific. Well, I'm glad. And as I said, as we begin to firm up some of these, we'll bring more information to the table. Dr. Pignato, did I see your hand? I do. Hello.
Hi, mine is a logistical question. I know a large part of this meeting is devoted to unpacking and giving feedback on the job description.
Yep.
And it's 5:36.
Yep. I'm about to go there. Okay, so
I raised my hand again, regardless of the time, because I have a clarifying question before you go there.
Okay, go ahead. Carlene, are you okay?
I absolutely, and I'm just wondering if it's okay if we go past 6 to make sure that we get a solid first draft of the job description together.
I have to make my apologies. I have a time certain at 6, but let's see if we can get it done.
Okay.
And let's see what we get there. Okay. And I may ask my co-chairs to help me if we really do need to go beyond that. But let's shoot for 6. I think we might be able to do it. Roxy?
The clarifying question that was asked of me recently that I did not have the answer for, so I'm bringing it to the group.
Okay.
It was really about as far as the comments, the videos, the texts, the emails, and all that are supposed to help form this draft of a job description. The question was asked is, when is the cutoff period? So meaning that is there a date where they will stop being accepted?
Okay, so
some of the questions are directly related to job description, some are directly related to the job interview questions. So people got to figure out when will their content really make impact and when will it really not at some point.
Okay, so multiple bites at the apple here. All right, so let me say it out loud. If I'm wrong, I'm sure our staff will correct me. The next meeting we have is April 5th. Today, we will look at a proposed draft, and I've asked that folks around the table here have a list of the major pieces or major themes that you would make sure that you want to see in the job description. And as Mary help us go through the marked up draft that we have, make sure that you're seeing, that you're checking off your list, right? So, and if anything that's left over that you want us to incorporate, we will take from you today. And staff and I and our co-chairs will sharpen up a final draft that we will see at our meeting on April 5th. We will then recommend that final draft to the school committee on April 6th, along with the recommendation of our search firm, so that the search firm, the job description will land at the same time, so the next stage of work can continue to be done. The questions for both our first level interview and the final interview that happens in the search committee are formed after that. However, we want to be very careful that our questions really come off of the major themes of the job description. So there's continuity, right, in what we ask for and what we ask questions about of the candidate. It does not mean that those that you can't have additional content, because there will be 2 interviews with us, and then the public interview with the school committee, right? And then there's public interactions during that interview period with the school committee as well. So there are multiple timeframes, right, in order to get in the content that you believe to be important. Does that help?
It helps, but I'm gonna be honest, what I hear, and maybe I'm synthesizing too quickly, is April 6th is where the majority of those videos and any comments would be able to really have the largest impact, because after that date, basically you're going with themes that have followed from before that. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's correct. But let me see if I can frame this in a little bit of a longer arc. Right. So all the material that we've been gathering, we've been sussing out major themes, and that should appear in some way in the job description. But what we've collected so far, the artifacts that we've collected so far, don't disappear. They eventually would go to the superintendent who's coming in, and that person would use all of this materials as the context to their beginning their work. Right. So it's not like we take all the stuff and then chuck them out and say, oh, that's all done. All of this is cumulative, and it continues to inform and iterate. And that's why I was not particularly worried about the fact that, maybe we'll have listening sessions after the 6th, because folks are still listening, folks are still processing, and we don't want to cut off that, that processing and creative timeline. But we as a committee, I think, needs to be it needs to do our work, so there's something for folks to react to, right? So that's what I'm hoping that we can go ahead and get into it now. In fact, if you would allow me, the next 20 minutes that we have is what we're going to do this on. So I'm going to ask Mary to pull up, to share screen with all of you, and I'm hoping that you have at your desk that list of major themes that you want to see in your job description. As she walked through the changes, check them off. If we didn't touch it, let us know what that is. Okay, would that work for folks? All right, it is hard to group write, and I really appreciate all of you doing this. Mary, I'd like you to go all the way to the end of the document first, where it said challenges. All of you have had a chance to look at this document, and as you can see at the very last part of this job description, for the last iteration was a long listing of current challenges. What we have done in relooking at this particular document is that we probably don't want to skewer the perspective of incoming folks that the biggest thing that we have are challenges, because this is what it sounds like, right? You end this document with like a page and a half of challenges. So that these challenges are not gone, but they're incorporated into the specific sections of the job description. So they're in context of what we want, some of the things that we have done, but then things that are left to do, right? So it's a more organic look. So I just wanted to get that framework out there. Let's see. Jean, I don't understand your question.
So I was just, but my question is looking through the things that have been struck out, and you mentioned that we were going to potentially put them, underneath like the standards. I wonder whether, rather than framing them as challenges, we could frame them as priorities.
Okay, why don't you? That's a possibility. Maybe see how this strikes you. Let us walk through the documents and see if they're prioritized in the right way as you go through the documents. That's part of our goal, right? Is to pull these back into the body of the document so they appear as the things that are requirements. It may probably have achieved what you're looking for. So would you sort of hang on to that and check us to see if we get there? Jean?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Mary, let's go back to the beginning. And I'm assuming that all of you have read this a couple of times. So let's walk through some of the changes. So the green is the addition. We heard from you that you do want us to be clear about the need for communication and transparency. So that is there. In terms of communicatively proficient, we went with a stronger statement of being credible and compelling advocate for K-12 public education. And then there are no additional changes to that page. And then here's a big chunk of change right here. And this is under the categories of skills and qualities. We heard and have reflected here the expertise and experience needed in terms of policies, programs on the ground, practices, praxis in the field, and closing of opportunity and attainment gaps. So that's one bullet that's added. And the other one is a demonstrated ability to cultivate an organizational culture. We also heard that as being important. Mary, there's a request from Roxy to make your type bigger. And my old eyes also would appreciate it as well. I'm gonna put my glasses back on. So a push for a holistic leader who can touch everything from policy to programs to practices and having experience. And understanding reform, and then the piece on the cultivation of organizational culture. And then in that element is also the educational outcome and eliminating opportunity and achievement gaps. And we had just heard that actually earlier in public comments. We wanted to be sure that cultural competency is part of our practice with the superintendent. And as you can see, that is added here. And then the last bullet is about being an anti-racist organization, understanding policies and practices, and looking at those pieces. Carlene, you have something to add?
Yes, and I think I would suggest that it would go in the very top.
Okay.
If you don't mind going back to the top. And based on all the listening sessions, all of the things that we've heard or that I've heard have centered around the opportunity and achievement gap policy that has yet to be fully implemented. And we heard this evening that that was a concern. So at the very top where it says the Boston Public Schools is seeking a strong ed leader, committed to addressing the issues of equity, I would suggest that we put opportunity and achievement gaps.
Okay, thank you.
Because we have to address those gaps so that we can see that equity needs to materialize.
Okay. Thank you for that input. And to your point, you will continue to see the words opportunity and attainment gap throughout this document. So that initial touch that you suggested would then echo back again as we go through the document. That's great. Thank you.
And I would say that the implementation of the policy, that language would be important to include.
Thank you. Mary is our wonderful scribe tonight, and so she's taking notes as we go. Mary, why don't you go? Thank you, Carlene. Let's move on. And also as we go through, because there are a number of changes, you may see what you want to hear echoing throughout the document. So hopefully that will help as well. All right, so we went through the elimination of the opportunity and attainment gap, and with the suggestion of focusing on implementation of current plans. So we heard you there, Carlene. And the next piece of
we do have Roxy's hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see. So would you guys?
I'll help you with the hand raise while you.
That would be great. Roxy, go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I didn't know if you were like, I'm just going to have you were putting me in the weight box type of thing.
No, I can't see you at all. I'm just looking at the document. My apologies.
Okay. And I know you want to get through the green and the changes.
No, that's okay.
It's going to take time to digest it, seeing the changes for the first time, to be honest with you.
No, that's fine.
But one of the things that struck me, and I'm going back to the very top, so I must process a little bit slower because I need the very top again. So I completely agree with what Carly said about the highlighted focal point on closing that opportunity and achievement gap. And I know you're saying it's throughout the document, but I think it really needs to be, because a lot of the themes and touching points, when I said the connection points, when people describe it in various ways, when you put it under umbrella, really it's about those groups that are in that gap area that need to change. But one thing that I remember when I was first reading through it that stood out to me is even in that first bullet point, because I know it does say like a culturally diverse. And for me, because I think it's so important for that first bullet point, honestly, and from what we've heard from what the students, from the families and educators too, I really think that needs to go beyond culturally. I would like to see language in there talking about not just culturally, but racially, linguistically, and neurodiverse, to be clear what type of large urban district and the diversities that are part of culture, but also go into other multiple cultures that this district strongly represents.
Would you do me a favor, Roxy? Would you either would you jot Mary a note with that language or put it in chat so we can capture it for you?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, let's go back to where we were before. Thank you, both of you, for the framing of what you just provided. All right, so we are at the bottom of the next page. We have made changes to the first bullet to include there you go, Roxy, multilingual learners, students with disabilities, or multilingual students with disabilities. So we were being specific there to ensure that we don't miss those. In the next bullet, the talk about, we've heard multiple times that social emotional learning is important and the physical development of the whole child is important. So we made those changes there. The next bullet talks about values and reliance on data, and about tolerance for risk-taking and the encouragement of risk-taking. The practice of the knowledgeable about best practices in the pre-K-12 space, and about transformation and the expansion of early childhood and updating facilities. We've heard that over and over again. The change in the next piece also echoes the last change we had, right? Including low-income students as well as multilingual learners.
Pam, I'm going to pause you for 1 second. I see Roxy's hand up and also Carlene's.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
So this is going pretty fast for me. As a school leader, I'd like to picture the candidate in front of me and look at the language of the work that the person would be doing. So I'm wondering, we have 9 minutes left. What other opportunities that we will have to give feedback? Because I did edit a version of the job description that has explicit language from the opportunity and achievement gap policy.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that that's embedded in there. And then I'd like to see what revisions you have in green.
Okay, so here's my suggestion, that we go ahead and walk through the rest of this document, and between now and maybe in the next couple of days, right before our next meeting, if you would send those changes to the co-chairs and to Mary, or I mean, I think that might be the easiest way to do it. And then Roxy is doing the other possibility, which is embedding comments in the chat itself. Would that work for you, Carlene?
Absolutely. And we'll have a chance to look at it before it's submitted formally.
Right. So I'm going to just add, sorry to interrupt. I appreciate everyone's urgency around this. And I also want us to just take a moment to breathe, right? Like and hopefully Mr. O'Neill agrees with me on this, but I think with the charge from the school committee, as aggressive as this timeline is, the ideal is that this would be presented to the school committee for April 6th. But if we're saying that we need a little bit more time to engage with this, I think we can do that. I think the other piece that's important to note is we are the subgroup, there is a subgroup of folks on the search committee who are engaging with the search firms. And this is also a process that they typically engage with. I think we were hopeful that we would be able to advance this while we were also having that parallel process in place. But I want to make sure that we capture what we're hearing from the community. We capture what we're hearing from the folks who are experts around this table. And I want folks to know that this will not be the only opportunity to engage in this exercise, and that all of the information that we're collecting here and from the community, we're going to continue to engage with those data points throughout the entire process. So I don't want us to be looking at the clock and being like, I didn't say this and this is final and now it's done.
Right.
That won't be the case.
Right. So this document will be in editing form and input form, right up to where, you know, where we're going to look at it on April 5th. And if we're able to get more time, that's fine too. What we do want to do, I think, is to balance wordsmithing, right, of individual and the embedding of concepts. I'm hoping that some of this will also come out as we try to craft the questions as that we ask candidates, and we don't forget those. Yeah, it is not my intention to rush through this, but if we can get some sort of a base today, then it would be easier for Mary and the group to get to our next iteration with additional input, if you can just send it to us. And, you know, maybe we can chat to see how much farther we can stretch the timeline. I would really appreciate that, Lorena and Michael. Okay, so shall we go ahead and walk through the rest of it and then have folks send in changes, and maybe we can send back out a draft prior to our next meeting to see if we're close. Then we can change that process just a little bit. And that will give folks a chance to see what has been gone through today. And rather what you send in is edited in the way that you would find acceptable. And then when we come back on April 5th, we will have something that would have included your input. Would that be okay? Is that a more reasonable way of looking at this?
I think so.
Okay, let's try that and see if it works. All right. Let's see, where are we? So I think there is a continuous change throughout, where it says English language learners, we have changed to multilingual learner, which I believe is the more contemporary reference and wider and more inclusive reference. And folks and students, and that we wanted to have under the last bullet before the indent, that we want some demonstration of this person's ability to address different types of academic challenges facing our schools. And then what you see underneath is an updating of the language to make sure that the COVID challenges that are timely are listed first, because that is so urgent with all of our schools and all of our children. And that the science of reading and access is part of that conversation. And then the next bullet talks about school environments, again, referring to multilingual learners and diverse native languages. Somebody mentioned that earlier, and that hopped out at me as well. And that there are exceptional alternative education programs. And then transforming practices and student outcomes for underperforming schools. And then the deletion here is of this particular bullet is replaced by the bullet underneath, that we are looking for someone who possesses a proven record of attracting and developing and retaining employees at all levels, that would reflect both the diversity of our city, and the mosaic of cultures in the school communities. And then I believe the next set of indents are specific, and those of you who have particular passion, whether it is academic or student affairs or wraparound services or facilities, and high school redesign and central office reform and efforts. If you would take a peek to see if we covered that range of the management skills, plus the leadership pieces and operational pieces, if we have that complete, and let us know if that works. And then the next big category is family and community engagement. We've added listening as part of the category because we've heard that over and over again in every venue that we've been. And I believe that last bullet with the change is just editing for style. So the piece about building upon a strong track record, that has been embedded in all of the bullets before. Take a peek to see if we deleted something that you don't want deleted in this piece. One of the things that we wanted to make sure is that that the description is clean and crisp. That repetition is important, but I think we would want the candidates for this position to come away with a pretty full but sharp picture of the areas that we're interested in. And the next piece about professional culture, there is not a whole lot of changes in this section, but we thought the motivation, I think, is important, particularly when we talk a great deal about culture. And we sort of combined the first and second bullet to make it a little bit cleaner. And not just administrators, but school leaders and teachers and central office staff members. This is much more specific to call attention to constituencies and employee groups. And I think that would be then the end of this particular document because we've taken the challenges and embedded it. So please make sure when you read this document again, that we have not lost any of the challenges that we should be talking about and that the embedding actually worked in the way that we thought it would. Okay, and can you go to the very end of the document, Mary? And the last piece of it is technical stuff, which I don't have a great deal of knowledge on, but I think it's classification and our non-discrimination policy document that must be on all of the standard job descriptions for all of the job categories. Okay, thank you, Roxy, for that. Many of our students don't live with parents. That's correct. And actually, I had picked up on that earlier as well. We need to try to find a more inclusive language. Maybe it is parents, but there are other categories plus parents, right? Who are.
I think a lot of places have moved to just utilizing the word families because all families are very different. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily fit a standard model per se.
Yeah. I like that. I like that very much. So my apologies to all of you. And I want to, thank our staff for helping with all of this very, very quick turnaround of our first draft. If you can stop sharing, Mary, so I can see folks' faces. I know this is a hurry up and go through it once, but hopefully between now and maybe over the weekend, you will have a chance to look at this and annotate it for us or send what you have. Right, to ensure that all of these pieces are included. And again, my apologies for the speed. And I really appreciate Lorena saying that, we will, maybe we can get a little flexibility, but I wanted us to have a stable foundation, at least that you can take home. And I'm sorry to assign homework, but hopefully this will give everybody an opportunity to at least be together on our first step, and then we'll catch up with one another as you send an input. Would that be okay? All right.
Sorry, I just didn't catch it. Who are we sending the changes to?
Send them to Mary, because I think she's our collector of stuff. Well, she's a lot of wonderful things, but she's also our collector of stuff. Mary, would that be okay?
I would be happy to take that as my new title. It's absolutely
And-
happy to support.
And again, I want to communicate my gratitude to all of you, to my co-chairs who have been wonderful, thought partners, and to our wonderful staff, and to all of you who've given so much time. And I will see you all on Saturday between 10 and 12.
Pam?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you or maybe Mary put in the chat what the next steps are?
Okay.
For
so let me
getting a job description that is inclusive of everyone's voices.
So one, we have the foundational document, and two, send changes you would like to Mary, and three, we will send back a almost final draft before, I'm typing as I go, before next Tuesday. On Tuesday, oh, let's say that's number 4. So on Tuesday, let's see how close we can get to consensus. All right, see if that works. Yeah.
Thank you.
You all are wonderful processors, and I really appreciate all of this. So may I entertain a motion to adjourn us? All right, come on, you guys do want to go, right? Somebody give me a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait,
Aye.
we have to do a
We
roll
have
call.
to do it
We
roll
have to do
call.
a roll call. So, and Lena, will you do a roll call for us?
Thank you, no problem. Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Dr. Pignato,
Yes.
Mr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Valenzuela,
Yes.
Ms. Edinger,
Yes.
Ms. Lopera,
Yes, thank you all.
Mr. McNeil.
Yeah.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I hope those of you who can make it, I'll see you on Saturday. And we will move this thing, and we will make sure we have consensus moving forward. And just buckle up for speed. I know that it's tough, but you all have been real troopers getting through this. So thank you so much. All right, have a good night.